What request back in Genesis 50 was finally fulfilled in Joshua 24? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we conclude our verse-by-verse study of the book of Joshua on Walking Through the Bible. Today we're going to be discussing Joshua 24 verses 29 to 33, but before we do that, let's read the passage. If you have a Bible with you, turn to Joshua 24 verse 29, but if you don't have a Bible, don't worry, just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So Joshua 24, beginning at verse 29. Now it come to pass after these things that Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died, being 110 years old. And they buried him within the borders of his inheritance at Timnath-serah, which is in the mountains of Ephraim, on the north side of Mount Gaash. Israel served the Lord all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua, who had known all the works of the Lord which he had done for Israel. The bones of Joseph, which the children of Israel had brought up out of Egypt, they buried at Shechem, in the plot of ground which Jacob had bought from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 pieces of silver, and which had become an inheritance of the children of Joseph. And Eleazar the son of Aaron died. They buried him in a hill belonging to Phinehas his son, which was given to him in the mountains of Ephraim. Joshua took over leading Israel after the death of Moses. He led Israel into the promised land, and with God on his side, Israel defeated the Canaanites and took control of the land promised by God to Abraham back in Genesis 12. Joshua had led the effort to divide the land up between the tribes, and thus Israel settled in the land which flowed with milk and honey. Joshua, unlike Moses, got to inherit land himself in Canaan and enjoy the fruits of his old age. But Joshua never forgot the Lord that he served, and he taught his family to never forget either. In his final act as leader that we have recorded in Scripture in Shechem, Joshua had Israel renew the covenant that they made with God at Mount Sinai. At Shechem, Israel vowed they would continue to serve Jehovah, the God that brought them into the land. After this solemn ceremony was complete, Israel returned to their inheritance, which is where we will pick up the narrative, the Lord willing, in our next study of the book of Judges. Coming though to verse 29 to 33, we have a postscript to this book that had to have been added at a later date, for it contains the death of Joshua as well as the death of Eleazar the high priest at the time of Joshua's leadership. As we said in our introduction, Jewish tradition holds that Eleazar the priest wrote of Joshua's death, and Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, wrote the account of Eleazar's death. Whether this is true is up for debate, but regardless, they still show the signs of inspiration of God, and as such can be trusted by the follower of God. What we find is that Joshua lived to be 110 years old. Joshua is the last person in Scripture outside the book of Job, which probably occurred prior to the events here in Joshua, that would live to be over 100 years old. Of course, living to such an age has caused some Bible critics to charge that these characters really didn't live that long, but rather these ages were embellished later or have some numerological significance, but that these men certainly died younger than their given ages. To that criticism I do point out, the years in Deuteronomy and Joshua are given as real history. Israel wandered for 38 years, even though the total years since they left Egypt was 40. And Caleb was said to be 78 years old when Israel crossed over the Jordan, and 85 years old when he inherited Hebron. My point is that these numbers weren't rounded off like in other places in Scripture they could have been. Scripture teaches that God can lengthen our years and he can shorten our years. The Israelites who died in the wilderness died young compared to Joshua, while Joshua and Moses died old compared to the generation that left Egypt. It is evident, though, that as we have progressed through Bible history, that man's lifespan has diminished. A psalm of Moses would tell us, though, that even by Moses' days, lifespans were shorter than even his would be. For Psalms 90 verse 10 puts man's life between 70 and 80 years old, though of course exceptions could exist. So by the time of Moses, ages well over 80 seem to be the exception, not the rule. But that doesn't preclude someone living to be 110, especially if God lengthened his life, as God may have done here with Joshua, so that Joshua could enjoy the promised land that he helped Israel take. But Joshua didn't live forever, and so he died at age 110, and was buried within the borders of Timnath-Serah, the place of his inheritance. Before moving on, I would like us to note Joshua's epitaph. Joshua the son of Nun, servant of the Lord. Believe it or not, the phrase servant of the Lord, servant of Jehovah, or even servant of God, is only applied to 3 people in the Old Testament: Moses, Joshua, and David. It's not that other people didn't serve God, but these 3 men were bondmen of the Lord, each willingly serving God in order to be led to fulfill the purpose that God had prepared for them. Moses as the lawgiver of Israel, Joshua as the conqueror of Israel, and David as the king of Israel, whose house was through whom the Messiah would eventually come. This epitaph, though, is a testament to Joshua's faith and determination in serving the Lord, and the Lord alone, until the end. May we seek to follow in Joshua's footsteps. As a testament to Joshua's faith and influence, it is said that the people of Israel served God all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua, who had seen what the Lord had done for them before entering the land of Canaan. It would only be after that generation died that Israel would fall into idolatry. With the death of Joshua now recorded, the postscript turns to an event that probably happened years before, but wasn't recorded because it would have broken the narrative presented in this book, which is the burial of the bones of Joseph at Shechem. If you recall back to Genesis 50, verses 24 to 26, here's what Joseph commanded shortly before his death. And Joseph said to his brethren, I am dying, but God will surely visit you and bring you out of this land to the land of which he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Then Joseph took an oath from the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones from here. So Joseph died, being 110 years old, and they embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt. It had taken probably about 350 years for this request to be fulfilled, but it was when Israel settled in Canaan. Shechem was a city that lay on the borders of Ephraim and Manasseh, Joseph's children, and the burial place itself was where Jacob had bought a parcel of land when he returned to Canaan in Genesis 33. So this was a fitting place to bury Joseph's bones within Israel's borders. The book of Joshua concludes by telling us that Eleazar, the high priest of God, died also. How many years after Joshua, we don't know, only that he was buried on a hill belonging to his son Phinehas, the new high priest. This hill was located in the mountains of Ephraim, but would have been within the borders of Benjamin. For if you recall from chapter 21, the house of Aaron received cities in Judah, Simeon, and Benjamin, not Ephraim. This shouldn't confuse us, though, for in Judges, we'll find that the mountains that were called the mountains of Ephraim did extend into Benjamin's territory. Thus, with the death of Joshua, Eleazar, and the elders that crossed over the Jordan, almost all those who lived during the time of Moses and had experienced the wonders that the Lord wrought from Egypt to Canaan had passed on. It was going to be up to a new generation, a generation that had not seen these wonders, to continue serving the Lord that had done those things. And we're going to witness how they did in our upcoming study of Judges. And so with that, we conclude our verse-by-verse study of the book of Joshua. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's overall review of what was revealed to us in this book as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.